gifted artist at a young age. And he spared himself the horrors of the work camps by using that gift to depict the Chinese dictator Mao Zedong. After the Cultural Revolution, he was the first Chinese person to earn a PhD. It was in religious art. And then he became a professor at Nanjing Theological Seminary, the first Christian teaching institution in China. And I don't believe he's active there other than in emeritus anymore, because most of his time now is painting. And there's a volume of art that you can find online. Heiki. His depiction of the crucifixion is interesting for a number of reasons to me. We see the Spirit descending. We see God in spirit form present. We see God in Christ form present. But the ones who gather around Jesus are an interesting group. You see this one up here, for example. It may be more clear from your insert. But what is this person? What is this person's situation?
In jail.
In jail, behind bars. And here we have someone bringing someone else who it's clear can't come on their own, reaching for whatever assistance might be available. And we have a mother with a child, poignantly, a child that's very ill or even deceased. And we have one who represents the people, stripped to an ultimate vulnerability. And we have one below, who's either dead or dying. When we think back on Jesus' living ministry, what he proclaims to be God's deliverance is recovery of sight for the blind. The lame will walk. The captives will go free. The poor will be exalted. And the dead will rise. He takes that Isaiah prophecy, he takes Jesus' first sermon in the synagogue in Nazareth, he encapsulates them in this resolving, reconciling theme of the crucifixion, and shows us a Christ who seeks to bring that about, blessed literally by the Spirit of God. Phenomenal work, and all of his work is this way. He has another one that I didn't include here that is not essentially a crucifixion theme, but it shows a cruciform Christ, smiling beatifically. And people are gathered in and among and around and all over. And we hear that message from Moses in the desert that the serpent image must be lifted up and people will be delivered. And we hear Jesus echo that in the gospel. When I am lifted up, I will draw all people unto myself. And he celebrates that in a crucifixion image that yet explodes with joy and celebration for the deliverance of God. The next is a very contemporary piece. And about as startling as we get, although, as I said, the images of crucifixion that are available in art, very accessible online, run the gamut. Interestingly enough, we have a direct comment from the artist of this item. John Drago is a skilled digital artist. And if you've ever played computer games or even been involved with animation on computers at all, chances are you've been in one of John Drago's environments, or maybe even have been one of John Drago's characters. He's that prolific. And he says this about this image. He says, this started out as a message piece trying to show how religion is being replaced by technology. This is his view in contemporary society. Religion is being replaced by technology. How, as the world gets smaller and smaller, the more things become less miraculous, his quotes. Through knowledge and the advancement of the mind. Basically, religion is being crucified by technology. Interesting cultural comment. We may agree with that, we may disagree with that, but he brings us that question. says, it started taking the form of almost a futuristic tarot card. In the background, the post-apocalyptic city is in ruins. It seems to be one of our major themes in movies these days. You can't really make it out here, but it says, yet the sparks of humankind can still be seen lighting up the windows. There are still people peering out from those darkened buildings. The technological video monster / torture device is both sentient and mobile, floating through the streets with a warning of what happens to those who practice free thinking. That's what a digital artist does today, commenting on the rise of technology, the decline of institutional religion in our contemporary culture, and shows us Christ crucified on video monitors, coming through the midst of a darkened city. And a final one, we looked at a Jesus Matha project image for the Last Supper a couple weeks ago. This is one of the Jesus Matha project's crucifixion images. And again, this is a group in Versailles, France, whose evangelistic project is to depict gospel themes in indigenous cultures. And so we have a black Jesus crucified on the cross, we have black mourners gathered around the base of the cross. What's interesting about this is the Matha Project people come to villages and organize play acting to depict these themes and stories. And then drawings and photographs and sketches are taken, and they're returned to a group of artists, one of which, Benedict Rotsier, is fairly well known, who then depict them in paintings and send these paintings back to the villages as mementos of their enactment of these stories. And they also go elsewhere to show others that they can find themselves too in the midst of these stories. And a last piece. A central distinction, and it has been since the Reformation. On the left, obviously, the crucifix. On the right, the empty cross. Some people have tried to square this off even more dramatically than it has been in the past. When we think of a crucifix, what kind of churches and practice do we think of? Roman Catholic. And when we think of the empty cross, Protestant traditions, the mainline denominations. And yet, there's a lot of crossover. And particularly in more conservative, even Lutheran churches, you can find crucifixes flowing about the chancel. The question for us becomes, where does this theme of crucifixion fit in our theology? Are we a people who look upon a crucified, suffering Christ and find ourselves in that, a companion in the hardships and suffering of life? Or are we a people that will focus on a cross no longer bearing that suffering, but a cross that stands emblematic of one who has triumphed over suffering and death? Or are we somewhere pulled in a tension between the two? Art enables us to ask those questions. Art enables us to express that tension, comment on a contemporary world, to reflect on the ancient world, and always to be seeking the deepest truths to which God is leading us. That's why we're doing